up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Orange County. This is season 17, and in this review, we're going to do a double recap. So I'll be recapping episodes 11 and 12. So let's get into it. All right, y'all. So episode 11, y'all gonna have to bear with me because I filmed this last night and somehow the audio got messed up. So I'm a little annoyed, but I'm gonna give you my best. So episode 11 opens up and we see Emily is with one of the people that the Innocence Project helped exonerate, I think. I'm sorry I didn't get the lady's name, but Emily, we know from last season, is a part of the Innocence Project that is, I guess, based and founded in California. And the whole concept of the organization is to help those who are wrongfully convicted, who are in prison, to get exonerated and, I guess, to live a normal life after being wrongfully convicted. This lady that we have here that Emily is meeting up with, unfortunately, her boyfriend was murdered. She came home and he was dead. She called the police and she was like, due to shoddy police work and them just fixating on me, I got convicted. And she was 33 at the time and she spent 7 years in jail because I think she said she got out when she was 40 and she didn't do it. And as someone who does watch true crime and like Snapped and like all those shows on Oxygen and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, if someone is wrongfully convicted, it's because the police didn't do their job, or they just, like she said, fixated on one aspect of the case and they never looked at other options that could be possible. So they're having a gala for the Innocence Project and Emily is speaking there, so she's excited to go. We also find out that Shannon is having a fiesta party on National Taco Day, which is always weird to me how crazy they like going to Mexico and, you know, Mexican American culture. But I guarantee you they signing them bills to keep the Mexican people out. I know they are. I know they are. So it's wild to me because the fact that Vicky loves to go to Mexico, but I know she is probably a staunch, you know, Trump supporter. I'm like, you shouldn't be going. You shouldn't be going. Stay your ass in America. Stay here in America. Okay, behind the wall that you want them to build. But okay. But we see this scene with Gina. Gina's on FaceTime with Heather, and Gina can tell that Heather's vibe is off. She like, girl, what's wrong? And Heather's like, girl, my day is just shot. I gotta go to Huntington Beach because that's where Shannon's having her fiesta party. So me and her can talk. Like, I texted her, but sis left me on red and I don't like that she left me on red. And I'm like with this weird feeling like we need to have a conversation. So we're gonna have a conversation. Okay. So Gina also lets Heather know, like, yeah, I'm not going either. I don't like how things were left at Tamara and Jen's party the other night. And, you know, she kind of lashed out at me when I wasn't even being mean at her. I was like trying to come to her defense. And so Heather's like, yeah, I don't know. So we see a scene where Heather actually pulls up on Shannon, and it was hilarious because Heather was not with the pleasantries. She gave like that side church hug and was like, come on, Shannon, let's get to it. So she sits down and she tells Shannon that like, what's going on with you and me? I called you. I left you a text. You didn't text me back. Shannon's like, I'm really upset with you. And Heather's like, well, I'm sorry you're upset with me, but I don't believe I did anything wrong, like, for you to be upset with me. And Heather's like, well, you're spending your time talking about me behind my back to other people. You're exposing the vaults of information I gave you. And Heather's like, I have not done that. You think I have, but I haven't done that. And in her confessional, Heather's like, Shannon thinks we're doing these things, but Shannon forgets that she gets drunk and then calls all of us. And so they then have a compilation of all the ladies minus Jen and Taylor in their confessionals being like, yeah, she calls us and she tells us her business. And then when you like try to talk to her about it, she act like she don't know what she told you. So Shannon is like, y'all are trying to make it seem that my relationship isn't healthy, that we're arguing, like he doesn't abuse me, he's not cheating on me. We just have arguments, normal arguments. And I'm like, okay, you have normal arguments, but clearly them normal arguments are causing like contention in your relationship, because the way you're reacting to everyone talking about this is crazy. So then Shannon is like, I can tell that pretty much she feels like Heather just wants to pry and pick at her relationship, and she knows Heather for her works. Like, you can tell Shannon still has issues with Heather. Even though they got closer on the off season because they were hanging out, there was still a part of Shannon that was not trying to be cool with Heather. And in my mind, I think the only reason Shannon and Heather got cool, it was because they didn't know that Tamra was coming. I feel as though had Tamra not been a part of the cast, Shannon and Heather would have been okay. But now that Shannon has Tamra and she's allowing Tamra to stir the pot and like get in her mind or just give her a reason not to be cool with Heather, it's like, now screw Heather, I got Tamra here. Even though Tamra showed in episode 12 that she'll throw you under the bus anytime she feels like it, because she did it to Shannon when they were talking about Travis when they went to the pumpkin patch. So I'm like, girl, like, Shannon, you're not stupid, but you're being stupid because you don't like Heather, which is wild to me. So then Heather's like, stop pointing the finger at me like I'm the bad person or I'm the culprit when everyone's been talking about your relationship. Even Tamra's been talking about your relationship, and she's supposed to be your best friend like that. So then they show a never before scene of where Shannon reads out the text that Heather sent Shannon, where she was like, she sent me a threatening text, and she ends up trying to make it similar to when Heather threatened her last season about messing with her family. And although I felt like Heather was doing the most, I understood where Heather was coming from, because it's like, girl, you're trying to mess with my livelihood. Me and my husband are out here making millions off of him working and doing what he does. I don't need you trying to act like he does shoddy work or a bad job when it comes to plastic surgery. So I felt like you was coming for my livelihood. I'ma check you. And Shannon would have did the same. Even though I felt like it was overkill, Heather, I got where you was coming from. But when Shannon reads out this text, which if you're not watching the episodes on Peacock like I do, Shannon, the text wasn't threatening in my opinion. Heather basically told Shannon, like, girl, I'm sorry that this is happening, but I've been telling you to tell your side of the story before people start telling it for you, and it puts a spin on it that you don't like. And that's what's happening. Like, Shannon doesn't like people talking about her relationship, but Shannon's forgetting that, girl, you call people when you're drunk and you tell them your business. And then you're shocked when they're like, girl, your relationship isn't that great because you have told us your relationship isn't that great. This isn't gossip. This is you telling us your relationship isn't that great. So then Shannon's like, John is a private person, and that pisses off Heather, because Heather's like, girl, he's not a private person. And then in the confessional, Heather's like, Shannon has told me John likes to be around her because he likes being a part of the spotlight. Like, what are you talking about? So then Shannon gets frustrated and upset, and she's like, I'm done. And she leaves the table. She tells them to stop filming her. Heather leaves, and while she's like mic'd up, like underneath her breath, she was like, I don't know how we're about to resolve this, because I don't know where we go from here, because I don't know. So then we get this scene with Jen and her adoptive son, Dominic, and I think that's his name. But I wanted to see this scene specifically because I was on TikTok just scrolling, and I happened to come across this live where these two Black women were talking about this scene and how Jen's statement made them uncomfortable. And I was like, what statement did she make? And they were talking about how when she said she wanted skin like Dominic as a response to him saying that he wants skin like them. And I was like, let me watch this, because y'all already know how I feel about Jen in this adoptive situation. But we see this scene. Dominic's outside. He's playing with a little soccer ball, and we know that they're fostering kittens right now. So the older sister, I think the only daughter, she brings out the little kitten, and he's sitting down with it, and Jen sits down with him, and she's like, do you know what happens after these kittens get adopted? Like, we know after we foster them. And he's like, oh, they get adopted. And she was like, do you ever wonder about your adoption? Like, do your friends ask you why you don't look like me or your siblings? And he's like, no. And she's like, okay, that's good. She was like, sometimes when you were were younger, you would ask about her, meaning his birth mother. And I tell you all the time, you have her eyes, you have her hair. And we all know the story about they got Dominic when he was like 11 months old from his birth mom. So then Jen in her confessional talks about how Dominic sometimes will say things like, oh, I wish I had hair like my older brother, or oh, I wish I had skin like, or why doesn't my skin look like yous and like the families? And Jen's response to that is, oh, I tell him all the time, you have beautiful skin. I wish my skin was like yours. And I get why they were uncomfortable. I think people who are non-melanated often forget that that is not a appropriate response to telling someone who's black or brown, oh, I wish my skin was like yours. It's on the equivalent of saying, I don't see color. And when people say that, they think that's a flex, but it's not. When you say you don't see color, you're saying that you don't see the struggles or the way the oppressive systems that black and brown people have to go through. You're not seeing how I, as a black person, as a black woman, I have to operate and navigate the world through a different maneuver, do a different way because I am black. Like, I don't have that ability or that privilege to say, oh, I don't see color. I have to see color unless I want to end up on a t-shirt or become a hashtag. So when people say that, it's not a flex you think it is. It really isn't. And for Jen to say it, I don't think she meant it in malice or she meant it in a bad way, but it's an ignorant statement. Your child, as he gets older, is going to wonder and it's going to be other people putting things in his head, especially with y'all living in white utopia, which is OC. You know, like, he's going to start to wonder. There are going to be people that are going to be nasty towards him because he doesn't look like you, because he doesn't look like them, and because they feel that they have the superiority and the right to oppress him. In order for him to still feel loved and strong and emboldened in who he is, it's going to take Jen, Ryan, and the kids, if Ryan wants to be a part of the family long term, to step outside themselves and begin to educate themselves on Dominic's heritage and his history and his culture, because that's how a lot of people who are adopted by white families who are not white have come out and told us, like, hey, I never felt ostracized or disrespected by my family because they took the initiative to understand and learn about my culture as me being a black or brown person or a minority, and teach me how to be proud and confident in who I am. And that is what Jen and the family is going to have to do, and his stepdad, if they want, not, is it his step? No, his actual dad, my bad, because he adopted him. His adoptive father are going to have to do if they want him to be happy and healthy and have the right mindset, pretty much. But I understand why those two women were like, yeah, it was an uncomfortable conversation and probably not a conversation that needed to be had on camera, but I mean, it is an important conversation to have with him because he is adopted and he is getting older, and there are going to be questions that come up. So we then get this scene, I'm gonna just get Heather out the way, where they're filing paperwork to put their house on the market. We know that they're putting their house on the market for $55 million, and they ended up, next episode, it actually gets sold. And they also, in this episode, in episode 11, they show us the $14 million penthouse that they purchased, which is actually really pretty. The view is beautiful. I don't think I would ever want to live in a penthouse that high, mainly because I remember stumbling across a TikTok of this couple where they were living in like this high rise, and it was thundering and lightning wherever they were. It looked like they were possibly like in New York or Chicago or like, I don't think DC, because I don't remember buildings being that high in DC. But it was a very tall sky rise. And the way their windows were shaking, I was terrified for them. And they were terrified too. I was like, hell no. Hell no to the no. I would be so afraid that the next morning I would wake up, there would be like the windows would be glass everywhere and birds would just be sitting in my living room. I couldn't do it. But the high rise that they have is lovely. We find out that it's closer to their son Nikki that is going to college in LA, and also it's closer to Nikki, but also that all the furniture and like the interior designing is done by this Italian designer who this is his first home he's ever done in America. He normally only does design work in overseas in Italy, like where he's from. So I was like, oh, that's really nice. So we then get this scene of Emily FaceTiming Shannon while she's preparing for the fiesta party. It goes left so quickly. So, like I said, it goes left because Emily is talking to Shannon on FaceTime. She's trying to understand like where they're at after them having that whole exchange in the hallway at Jen's house. And Shannon's like, you really hurt my feelings. And Emily's like, well, Shannon, like, we're trying to have these conversations with you and you're acting like you haven't had these conversations with us. Like, you tell us stuff off camera and then when we try to talk to you about it, you don't want to talk about it. Like, I would love to have a sit down with you and have this conversation, but I don't know. So then Shannon was like, well, you are being really mean to me, da 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 da. And then Emily can tell that they're about to get into an argument over FaceTime. And she's like, I don't want to have this conversation with you over the phone like this, Shannon. Like, you give us a bunch of BS off of camera and then you don't want to talk about your relationship. Then Shannon brings up, like, me and John have fights. You and Shane have fights. And Emily's like, yeah, me and Shane have fights, but we fight on camera. We talk about our issues. You don't talk about your issues. You're like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And you could tell Emily was getting worked up because the hand that she was using to like stabilize the phone while she was doing the FaceTime, her hand started like shaking. And I was like, oh, she is upset, which is weird to me why Emily is getting so upset. Because I'm like, you and Shannon aren't even friends like that, but you were getting very worked up. So she's telling Shannon, like, you're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Shannon gets offended by it. And she's about to, get into her Shannon mode and go off. Emily's like, I'm not having this argument with you over the phone, Shannon. I'm not doing it over effing FaceTime. And you could tell Emily is so worked up because she accidentally pulls down the screen. I don't know what you call that screen on your iPhone where you can like turn on the Wi-Fi, change the lights, the lighting on your phone, and turn on the flashlight. But Emily's like, I'm not doing this with you. I'm not doing it. And then she like aggressively hits the off button. She's like, I can't do it. And then production asks Shannon, like, did she hang up? And they're like, yeah, she hung up. And Shannon is like really upset. She's like, wow. Like, she's like, can't believe Emily hung up on her. So then they break the fourth wall and you see production come in. This is like the third time they've broken. No, is it the third? Like, yeah, the third or fourth time they broken the fourth wall. Like, I think the first time was when Tamara told Shannon when Vicky was there. Then when they were at the party, she did it at the party. And now she doing it again. And she did it like 3 times in this episode. Shannon was like, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this. And so then Emily's talking to production and she's like, I hate that she be in this victim mode. Like, she doesn't know what's going on. Shannon then lets us know that, like, I'm not going to tell everyone that John's son hates me. John is a very private person. And she's like, you can't film that. And they put it in there. And I was like, why does that boy hate you, Shannon? Why does John's son hate you? How old is he? And why does he hate you? What have you done, Shannon? What has John done for that boy to hate you? But she's like, I'm not going to say that. He's a very private person. I was like, he can't be private and be on a show with you. It don't work like that. So while Shannon's having this meltdown, John ends up calling and she tells John, like, I can't talk to you right now. Emily just called me Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm just not having a good day. I'm not having a good day, John. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And so they click up. They hang up. So Shannon's then upset because now 3 couples aren't coming. So that's 6 people and she bought a cutlery for 16 people. So she's still upset, trying to get ready. Her friend is trying to help her get ready. While that's going on, Emily and Gina are on their way to the Innocence Project Gala, where they meet Terrell, who we saw last episode. We see his daughter. He has a program helping those who got, helping them after they get out of jail, who got wrongfully convicted. We meet a lady that was like convicted of a double homicide that she never committed, and she was on death row. But it turns out that the person who actually did it could like confessed to the crime, and they commuted her sentence, and like she's out and free. We see Emily give a really nice speech. We see the person who started the program. He comes out and he gives a speech, and Gina's just really proud of Emily. She also brings up about her DUI, and I said, Gina, you better not make your DUI on the same level of people being in jail for being wrongfully convicted, because she was out here in them streets driving illegally. But then she saved herself, and she was like, yeah, it makes me realize like what I've been through isn't as big. Like it's important, but it's not as big as what they've been through. And that was their moment. So we flash back over to Shannon. Everybody that was going to show up shows up. We see Taylor, Jen, and Tamara. They bring their significant others. They're all like, well, where are the other girls? And she's like, they're not coming. Then Tamara's like, screw who's not here. Everyone that's supposed to be here is here. So then they sit down and eat. And then Jen is like, oh, I think it's really messed up that they're not here. I'm like, Jen, shut up. Shut up. Because then Jen starts stirring the pot. She starts stirring the pot while they're sitting at the table, and she brings up how she had to sit down with Gina, and when they were out looking for outfits, and she was like, well, Gina told me that you've been like meddling in her relationship, because Jen's whole thing is like, everyone's been meddling in everyone's relationship, even you, Shannon, and Gina told me that you were. And Shannon was like, no, I told Gina that like it's kind of like you're gonna push Travis away, bringing up what happened in Montana about you talking about how you still are hurt over what happened between you and Matt. And she's like, if I told John about how David hurt me for 3 years, he wouldn't be happy and he wouldn't want to be with me, which I understand and I think is true. But it's like, well, Shannon, if you don't want anyone speaking about your relationship, even if it's a positive light, then you shouldn't be adding your 2 cents into anybody else's relationship. So then Shannon brings up CPS. So she brings up how, well, I helped Gina. And you can tell that Shannon is tipsy. She's like, well, I helped Gina. She would have went to jail had I not helped her. She would have got arrested and her kids would have been taken away by CPS. Now Jen's like, whoa, that went too far. You have Tamara on the side telling Jen, like explaining it to her that like, oh, Gina got in trouble for a DUI. Shannon gave her the letter, like the number to an attorney. And that's how like Gina escaped getting arrested. And I remember them showing us that. So Jen is like, yeah, like you went a little too far. They got the dude who's doing hibachi or whatever, cooking them their tacos. He ends up bringing out a vodka water gun, or no, a tequila water gun. So they're now all shooting each other with a water gun full of tequila. So there was that. Then we get this scene of Gina going over to Jen's house. And Gina's like, girl, why wasn't you at Shannon's event? And Gina tells Jen, like, girl, me and her didn't leave the last party on good terms. I didn't want to be in all of that. So Jen ends up telling Gina about the CPS comment, and Gina's like, what do you mean CPS? And Jen's like, well, Shannon said that if she had not helped you out with your DUI, CPS would have came and took your kids. And Gina's like, girl, people in Orange County get DUIs all the time. They get DUIs all the time. Like, had I been taken, like, everybody's kids would be taken away. Okay, girl. And so she's like, every time Shannon meets somebody new, she tells them about this story where she saved me. And they end up showing the flashback where Shannon tells Heather about the DUI. And what's her name? Gina's like, you love to tell that story in the car. And she's like, yeah, because I saved you. And Gina's like, okay, Shannon. And then Gina's like, all she did was give me a number to an attorney, which in regards, like, it did help Gina because the attorney worked out a deal where they weren't going to arrest her or come get her. But I do think it's like, Shannon, shut up at this point. Like, you're showing that you did not do that gesture in kindness. You did it so you could hold it over Gina's head. And y'all know I don't like Walmart Gina, but I get where Gina is coming from. Every time you tell this story, you gonna up the ante. And she's like, next time you tell the story, you gonna tell somebody I was trying to murder someone and you saved me from doing that. So she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Shannon, because at this point, I don't want to be friends. I don't want to be friends, but I do need to check her and let her know what's up. The last scene we have is of Emily and Shannon sitting down. And I was disappointed in Emily because she folded so quickly. She folded so quickly with Shannon. They sit down. Emily apologizes for her outburst on the phone. Shannon, I don't know how, reverts the conversation back to Heather, where she's like, Heather Dubrow is a manipulator and a liar, because now Shannon is like, well, Heather's telling me that Emily, like, you and Tamara are the ones that's bringing it up, and they're like, no, we're not, she brought it up. So she's like, yeah, she's a manipulator and a liar. Then Emily's like, well, Shannon, I just want to be in a good place with you because I really value our friendship. She started crying for some reason, and I'm like, really, Emily? Really? I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed. And that's where the episode ended, where they're good now. All right, y'all. So episode 12. Episode 12 opens up and we see Terry and Heather at home, and these two realtors come over. The guy, I remember him on Million Dollar Listing on Bravo. I know they had like an LA version, and then they also had a New York version. I used to watch the New York version more than the LA version, but honestly, I would watch it when it would come on TV. I wasn't like looking for it. But pretty much their house gets sold for the $55 million. Heather tells us that not Harry, why do I keep calling this man Harry? Terry pretty much thinks she manifested this because she told Terry during New Year's that she wanted to sell the house for $60 million, but she was like, I was off by $5 million. So they ended up selling the house, but they have to be out in like 3 weeks, and they don't have another home to go to. And the apartment that they bought in LA is only through like 2 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. So that's not big enough for their whole entire family, because the twins are coming back for Christmas. And you know, when in your college, you normally get like a month or almost like a month and like a couple of weeks off for Christmas. And then you got the younger kids who are going to be there either way because they're not even old enough to go to college. So they're like, now they have to find a home. But it was just weird. But it was also kind of cool to see like how they do like the behind the scenes stuff, because the realtor, both of the realtors leave. And I guess they were like, okay, we're done with this conversation. But then they knock on the door again, and you hear production running in the background being like, hold up, guys. So they had to stop having a conversation, which I was like, that is so awkward. And I would probably lose my train of thought if I was in the middle of having like a hardcore conversation. But the realtors come back in and they're like, they signed the documents. So Terry and Heather are like, for real? And the guy is like, yeah, like right when we left the house, they signed the documents. So they're like overjoyed and ecstatic. And the kids are there, like all of their kids are there. So they're like, they're done. But Heather ends up telling Terry, like, I don't know if I want to tell the ladies. I'm probably not going to tell them, because it's like anytime I share my accomplishments, I'm being pretentious or snobby. And I don't want that to be that case, because I don't want them to rain on my parade. But I'm happy we were able to do this. So we then see this scene of Emily and Gina. They're at the Harley Davidson motorcycle shop, and we find out that Emily wants to get her motorcycle's license, so she has to buy all the gear for the safety class. And we end up seeing Gina. So Gina and her are talking, and Gina just tells Emily, like, girl, I went over to see Jen, and she basically told me that Shannon was telling the ladies that because of her, my kids didn't get taken away by CPS. And Emily's like, wow, she really said that? But I was expecting a grander reaction from Emily, because Emily normally rides really hard for Gina. So her reaction really wasn't, it was like, it was weird to me, because it's like normally she be on 10 for Gina, but I guess because she wants to have this friendship with Shannon, she's just like, I need to wait to hear what other people got to say. But pretty much Gina's like, yeah, like, girl, pretty much, like, Gina's just like, yeah, no, like, sis really disrespected me, like, telling people that my kids were going to get taken away. And then Emily says the same thing that Gina said in episode 11, where she's like, a lot of people in OC have DUIs. I said, that is not a flex. But like they said, if everybody that had a DUI got their kids taken away, it'd be a lot of kids like in foster care, because a lot of people get DUIs. So that didn't even make sense. And it doesn't make sense unless there's probable cause. Like, just because you got a DUI doesn't mean they're going to come and snatch your kids away, unless that's like your ninth DUI and the kids was in the car. But they weren't. Nowhere to be found. So we then get this awkward scene with John and Shannon and Tamra, where we find out that John actually slept over at Shannon's house. Now, we know John don't really be sleeping over at Shannon's house, so I really feel like they did this for TV purposes. But John is like rubbing on Shannon, and like at first she was into it, but then she wasn't, and he kept doing it, and it just got awkward. But then we see Tamra pull up, and she comes in the house, and she's like, "Oh my God, you slept over? Oh, we need to tell Emily and Heather." So you can already tell that Tamra is like fanning the flames of like she's stirring the pot. She's stirring the pot and working Shannon up, and it's working because Shannon is stupid. Ugh, lady, Shannon is pissing me off, because normally I'm here for Shannon, but the way she is allowing Tamra to like really work her and play in her face is irritating me. It's just irritating me. So then John leaves, and then we have Shannon and Tamra go outside on the patio area, and they're talking. And Tamra pretty much asks Shannon, like, "What's up with you and John? Like, are y'all doing good?" And pretty much what it sounds like is that Shannon would like to marry John, but John doesn't want to get married, and it bothers her that he doesn't want to marry her, as well as she's realizing that they're reaction styles are different. Like, whenever they have conflict, Shannon wants to constantly talk it out, but John is somebody that is a runner. Like, he avoids conflict, he leaves the scene, and then he doesn't want to talk about it, and that bothers Shannon, and it bothers her. It really, like, it puts her in an awkward position. She also talks about how, like, they've never really been on vacation without working. So she was just like, I don't know. She was like, when our relationships first started out, we were on, like, such a really, really high that now it just feels like we're in a lull period and kind of going down because they started off so high. I honestly think that their relationship, like I keep saying in my reviews, has reached a crossroads where it's like, if John doesn't want to get married, then you shouldn't force someone to marry you. But if you would like to be married, then you should go for what you want. Like, Shannon should not settle. But I also think Shannon is at the age and at the point in her life where she doesn't want to keep having to look for somebody or try to date. I also think she feels as though getting a divorce, she sees it as a failure, and she wants this relationship to work so badly with John that she's not trying to let it go, because you can clearly see that, like, it's not working anymore. And that's not to say that John's a bad person or that Shannon's a bad person. I think we get to this point in relationships where everyone tries to act like if two people break up, that one person really had to just be horrible. And sometimes that's not the case. It's just sometimes relationships just reach their end point, and you just got to let it go and move on from it. And I think that's where John and Shannon are at. But I do find it annoying that Shannon's like, I don't care what Heather or Emily or Gina have to say about my relationship. I was like, you do care, because by the end of this episode, you talking about it's giving you anxiety knowing that everyone's talking about your relationship. On top of that, the way you get frantic when people bring up John lets everybody know that you're hiding something and that there is issues in your relationship, and you're not doing a good job hiding it. So we then have this scene of Jen and Ryan, and honestly, what it is Jen and Ryan are getting ready to go to a wedding, and she asks Ryan while he's in the shower, like, why do you want to get married? And really what it boils down to in their conversation is that Jen does not trust Ryan all the way. She was completely hurt by the fact that he, when they were on their break, decided to have sex with another woman and she wasn't doing it. And like I told y'all, I don't even think they were on a break. I think they're saying they were on the break to make it look cute, but I think Ryan cheated, and Jen is having a hard time coming to terms with that, or her way of coming to terms with it is realizing that she does not want to marry Ryan. She just wants to be in a long-term relationship with him. But Ryan is trying to get her to marry him, which I'm just like, if you don't want to marry him, don't marry him. I think Jen even says, like, I don't want to have to sit my kids down again and say that I failed again in marriage, which, like I told y'all, I don't see divorces as failures. Like, if y'all don't want to be together, don't be together. That's not a failure. But I know how people put a lot of value in marriage, so I understand people seeing it as a failure. But I think Jen knows I'm in love with a whore. I know what Ryan is capable of, and it's easier for me to be his girlfriend than his wife because it's easier. Like if I get to the point where I don't want to be with him no more, we can detach from each other and I can move on. If I marry you, there's more to it than that. And I think that's why she's like, yeah, I don't know, Ryan. And also he doesn't make her feel secure. And she tells him that she's like, I don't want to have to question you. I need to know you make me feel that way. And you can tell that Ryan knows he messed up because he keeps trying to push this like, let's get married. You're the one thing. And anytime a guy can't really tell you why he wants to be with you, he full of it. Cause Jen asks Ryan, like, what makes me different than all the women that you've been with? And he's like, because you're you. That's not a good answer for me. And Jen was trying to act all lovey-dovey with him. And I was like, girl, I'd have been like, no, like, give me examples. Like, give me like, is it my personality? Is it the way we connect? Like, give me something. Just saying because I'm you, because you're you, does not work for me, bro. I would have told him that don't work. Give me something better. So we then see what's her name? Is his name Eddie? Eddie and Tamara at working out at another gym while Eddie has on a cut fitness shirt, and Tamara's talking about how it's a little uncomfortable. Well, stop wearing your your closed business attire to other gyms. Like then people wouldn't have to say nothing. But she pretty much tells Eddie that like she thinks Emily and Heather are bullying Shannon. Girl, Tamara, you were a bully to Shannon for 2 years. So STF you. Shut up. So they show like a flashback of Tamara sitting down with Emily and Heather. And pretty much they tell Tamara, like, girl, stop acting like you didn't hear them messages either. Like she don't be calling us about John. Like, what are you talking about? So we then have this scene of Heather and Shannon having another meetup. And Heather gets emotional where she pretty much apologizes to Shannon because she was like honestly, if I hurt you by anything I said or if I made you seem like I was out here like talking about you or I broke into trust with you, I apologize. And she gets emotional. Shannon don't think it's real. She was like, how long did she practice that in the mirror? My thing about it is I hope Heather eats Shannon up at the reunion because Shannon is being so stupid. Like, I just don't understand. Like, the truth of the matter is Shannon doesn't want to be cool with Heather. She doesn't want to be cool with Heather. I think Shannon is still holding on past resentment and past hurt from the years prior to the seasons prior of how Shannon and her used to beef. And I'm not saying that Heather doesn't have any fault in their relationship because there was times that Heather was doing too much when it came to Shannon and vice versa. But at this moment, Shannon looks stupid because you readily forgave Emily. Like you forgave Emily and just moved on. It's like you want Heather so badly to be the villain. It's so bad. And it's like, sis, she's not the villain. You are, because you're the one in this story that's telling everybody your business. Like, and my thing about it is like, even if Heather has said something to the other women about you, it seems like they already know what she's talking about because you get drunk and call them and tell your business. So at the end of the day, if you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at yourself that you get that drunk and you don't remember what you tell people. That's wild to me. That is so wild to me. So, like I said, I don't think she wants to forgive her. So, Shannon is like, I don't really trust her no more. And it is what it is. It is what it is. So, we then have this scene of all the girls going to meet up with at the pumpkin patch because Taylor decided to invite all the ladies there. So to summarize what happened at the pumpkin patch, everybody gets there before Shannon. People are picking up their pumpkins and the group gets split. You see Gina asking Tamara, what did Shannon say about me and my kids and about CPS? Tamara and Taylor, because Taylor's in the other group where it's Heather, Jen, Emily and Taylor, because Emily asked the group like, what did Shannon say about CPS and Gina? And Heather's like, CPS? Then Taylor's like, Child Protective Services. And Heather's like, girl, I'm not stupid. I know what CPS is. And so she's like, no, I know what that means. She was like, who brought up CPS? And Emily says, well, Shannon brought up CPS, talking about Gina's kids are going to get taken away, about the whole DUI thing. So Heather's like, okay, so we can't talk about John, but Shannon can make CPS comments. So you got Taylor and Tamra lying through their teeth, they old bleached teeth, talking about, oh, I don't remember. But then when they do the flashbacks, Jen is like, yeah, you hear Taylor. Taylor's like listening, like, ooh, making a face. And then you have Tamra explaining to Jen what drunk Shannon is saying at the table. Well, I'll say tipsy Shannon is saying at the table about CPS. So Shannon finally gets there. Shannon's feeling awkward because she's like, all these people didn't come to my party and it feels like there's an elephant in the room. So as they're carving their pumpkins, next thing you know, Shannon pops up and she's like, Jen, because I think Tamra told her, well, Jen is telling them that you made a CPS comment. So Shannon gets mad at Jen and she's like, Jen, what are you taking about CPS? I never said anything about CPS. Strike me, the Lord could strike me dead. And so Tamra's like, I think it got misconstrued. And Jen is like, really, Tamra? Like, you were in the car explaining, I explained it to you in the car, and then you acted like you remembered and you were explaining it to me at the table. So why are you acting like you don't know what I'm talking about? Jen being stupid too. Both Jen and Shannon are stupid when it comes to Tamra, because Jen is like, I would think my friend would back me up. Tamra has proven to you since the beginning of this season she is not your friend. She is not your friend. She does not care about you. That lady is not your friend. So I don't understand why you ever thought she was going to back you up, because she sees more value in Shannon, because Shannon can keep her on the show and you cannot, Jen. Girl, you got to understand where you at. I need you to put your thinking cap on. You need to understand where you at and who you talking to. So Gina gets pissed and she was like, CPS is not going to take my kids away. And I mean, I get where Gina's coming from. Ugh, I can't believe 2 episodes and I was agreeing with Gina. Ugh. But I get where she's coming from. And then Emily backed Gina up and was like, she wasn't going to get arrested. It was a bench warrant. They weren't going to come and arrest her. I don't know about that. But then again, Emily is the lawyer. And Shannon did say it. Shannon is lying. Pretty much Shannon tried to, and then Shannon starts to talk underneath her breath where you were going to get arrested. And just because she would have gotten arrested does not mean she would have gotten taken to CPS. That's how you know Shannon don't be knowing what she be talking about when it comes to certain topics. Because just because you get arrested does not mean your kids are going to be taken away. And why would they go straight to CPS when they have a father? If anything, they would have gone to the dad first and then went to CPS if they found the dad to be negligent. So what are you talking about, Shannon? So Shannon all of a sudden is acting like she having heart palpitations because the reason she was late to the pumpkin patches, I guess she was getting the IV fluids, and the person was telling her that she was swollen from fluids and from stress. So now she's talking about her chest is getting tightened as everyone starts to try to like eat her up. And then Gina was like, I think maybe there might be like a miscommunication between us because we always assume the worst from each other. Then Tamra tries to steal the moment by slamming one of the carving knives on the table, and everyone's looking at her like, girl, what are you doing? And then Tamra throws Shannon underneath the bus, talking about like, well, you did say Travis had a small penis. And everyone's like, why would you even bring that up? Like, Shannon, what are you, like, and that's why everyone's like, it's a double standard. Like, Shannon can say anything about anybody else's relationship, but if you bring up John, she go DEFCON 300. Like, she's like, it's an issue. She's going berserk on you. So they get up. They do like a relay race with like wheelbarrows. Heather referees, and then they finally sit down to actually like have dinner or lunch or whatever. And while they're sitting there, Tamra tries to like confront Heather. Well, Tamra has that podcast with Teddy, and Teddy talked about how there's no paparazzis at Disneyland because earlier in the episode, Tamra being pressed when she was at the gym with Eddie brings up about how Terry, and there was a picture of Terry and Heather at Disney World, and she was just like, it's so staged. And I'm like, Tamra has such this hard on for Heather, and it's like, girl, you're not Queen Bee. You don't have the money or the status, Tamra. Calm down. calm down. So while they're sitting at the table, Heather gets pissed. And Heather was like, so you're insinuating that we paid people to take pictures of us? And Tamara's like, no one goes to Disney World. There's not paparazzi pictures at Disney World. And I was like, that's a lie. They have them at Disney World, Disneyland, Islands of Adventures, Busch Gardens. If you're in some way famous, people are probably going to take pictures of you. And I mean, and then that's the other thing. People were online finding random pictures of celebrities at Disneyland in California by paparazzi. So it's like Tamara and Teddy don't know what they talking about. So Heather pretty much checks Tamara and she's like, you're insinuating stuff. And in that regard, it does mirror what Shannon is saying. But the only difference between Heather and Shannon, Heather is nipping it in the bud right here and right now and being like, I'm not even about to give that light. I'm not even about to give it weight. Like, they're not staged, but for you to insinuate that, it's like you want there to be an issue with me and my relationship, and there's not. And Tamara really couldn't say nothing. She shut up real quick after Heather checked her. And that's what Shannon needs to do. But it's like Shannon has too much against her because it's like you're acting like there isn't an issue when everybody knows there's issues between you and John. Everybody knows. So Shannon decides to leave. She leaves because she's like, I gotta go because she's not feeling good. Taylor's like, I'm kind of worried about her. And then Tamara's like, it's stress. We end up finding out that they're gonna have a launch party for Fireside, the streaming app. So Heather is inviting everybody to some place where they have like cotillion balls in Orange County. And everyone's like, oh, so it's not at your house. And she's like, no, I'm going to have it somewhere else. So they're going to start harping on not knowing that Heather sold her house next episode. But then Emily asks Gina, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And Gina's like, yeah, I'm fine, but like it's over. And the episode ends with Gina pretty much saying like Shannon either needs to go to rehab because it doesn't make sense how you can make comments and you don't remember them and then expect everybody to like gloss over it. But once you go to rehab and you get to the part where you are asking for forgiveness, then come holler at me. And in that regard, I don't blame Gina. Like, you keep throwing in my face that you helped me that one time and now you bringing up CPS. I'd be good on you too. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. That is how the episode ended. Remember to be bravely authentic and hop down in them comments for